Welcome and thanks for joining us for this week's Hebrew class. And today we are dealing with Yehochanan, John 18 verses 16 to 20. So let us therefore begin. And we hope these classes are useful for all those who are beginning to learn Hebrew. And so, as we begin, we also, as usual, give you a Nakud vowel marking chart and the useful resources which are very helpful in understanding the Hebrew and learning how to read it, and also enabling us through the dictionary, do it in Hebrew dictionary, to search out the root words. So let us begin. And as we can see, we begin with verse 16, which is represented by the tet, which has a value of 9, and Zion, which has a value of 7, which gives us 16. Along with 15, these are the two unusual ways of representing those numbers. All the rest are fairly straightforward. So let us go through the actual letters. And first we see we have Vav, Kaf, Fe, Aleph, Ayin, Mem, Dalet, Mem, Chet, Vav, Zadeh, Lamed, Shin, Ayin, Resh, Vav, Yod, Zadeh, Aleph, He, Tav, Lamed, Mem, Yod, Dalet, He, Aleph, Chet, Resh, He, Nun, Vav, Dalet, and Aleph. Remembering that where we have a Vav with the vowel mark, it changes the Vav to a U. So we need to be aware of where there is changes like that. Same as over here, we have a Vav, but it has a dot above it, and then it becomes O sound. So we have no. So let us now begin reading it. U, Kepha, which is, of course, Peter in the English, which means, and Kepha, or Kepha. Amad means to stand, stood. Mi chutz, meaning outside. La sha'ar, meaning to the gate or of the gate. Vayetse, and he went out. Ha-talmid, the disciple. Ha-acher, meaning the other. Ha-noda, meaning the one known. So what we discover is that noda is a verb to be known, to be brought to one's attention. Right, and the translation is Peter stood outside at the door. The other disciple that was known, and now we read it, and it is U Kepha Amad Mi Chutz La Sha'ar Vayetse Ha Talmid Ha Acher Ha Noda. Right, and the translation. And Kepha stood outside of the gate, and went out the disciple, the other, the one known. And then we go to part B, and we have Lamed, Kaf, Hey, Nun Safid, Hey, Gimel, Dalet, Vav, Lamed, Vav, Yod, Dalet, Bayet, Resh, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Shin, Ayin, Resh, Tav, Vav, Yod, Vayet, Aleph, Tav, Kaf, Fe, Hey, Bayet, Yod, Tav, and Hey. And we read, La Kohen, meaning to the priest. Ha-gadol, the great. In other words, the high priest, the great priest, right? Veideber, and he spoke. L2, ha-sho-eret, it means to the gatekeeper. Because we can see that it's got like sha'ar, which is gate in it, right? The one that keeps the gate, in other words. Vayaveh, and he brought in. Now we can see that ve is like vo, which means to come, right? But in context we can see, and he brought in et Kepha ha baita, meaning to the house. And from the previous verse, that was known by the high priest, went out and spoke to the doorkeeper and brought Peter into the house. And then I've just given you sha'ar, which is a masculine noun meaning gate, gateway, portal. But of course, this is talking about the one that guards the gate, right? The gatekeeper. So, we will now read that. La Kohen HaGadol Vedaber El HaShoeret Vayaveh Et Kepha HaBaita. And the translation, to the priest, the great, and he spoke to the gatekeeper, and he brought in, grammar marker, Kepha, to the house. And now we come to 17, represented with a Yod value of 10, Zion value of 7, being the 7th letter of the alphabet. Then we have Vav, Tav, Aleph, Mem, Resh, Hey, Aleph, Mem, Hey, Hey, Shin, Ayin, Resh, Tav, Aleph, Lamed, Kaf, Fei, Aleph, Hey, Lamed, Aleph, Gimel, Mem, Sofit, Aleph, Tav, and Hey. And now let's read it. Va, Tomer. Now here the Tav is a feminine form, so therefore in this form it is, and she said, the Tav giving us she. Ha-ama, the handmaid. If we look down there, ama is a feminine noun meaning female servant, handmaid. Interesting that uma is a feminine noun also, and it means nation or people. Just out of interest. Ha-shoeret, meaning, I added of, the gatekeeper, the handmaid of the gatekeeper. El to Kepha, meaning Peter. How low? Now the hey is a questioning hey, so it is are not, because lo we know means not. Gum also, ata, you. So therefore the translation is the maidservant who kept the gate, or the maidservant of the gatekeeper, you could say, said to Peter, are you not also? And of course we've got again sha'ar down here, meaning gate, gateway or portal. So now we can read that. Var tomer ha-ama ha-shoeret El Kepha Halo Gam Ata. And the translation. And she said, the handmaid of the gatekeeper to Kepha, are not also you? And then we go to part B. We have a mem. A tav, lamed, mem, yod, dalet, yod. Hey, aleph, yod, shin. Hey, zion, hey, vav, yod, aleph, mem, resh, lamed, and aleph. And we read it. Me, tell me day. From the disciples of. And then we have ha-ish, meaning the man. Ha-ze, this. Vayomer, and he said, remembering that no pronoun, meaning it's related to he. Lo, meaning no. Are you not also one of this man's disciples? He said, no. And now let's read that without any aid. Mi tol mi day, ha-ish, ha-zeh, vayomer, lo. And the translation, from the disciples of the man this, and he said, no. And then we come to 18, which is a yod and a chet. Yod has a value of 10, chet a value of 8, being the 8th letter of the alphabet. And then we have a vav, hey, ayin, vei, veit, dalet, yod, mem safit, vav, hey, mem, shin, resh, tav, yod, mem safit, hey, dalet, lamed, yod, kuf, vav, aleph, shin, gimel, chet, lamed, yod, mem safit, mem, pei, because the dot, nun, yod, hey, kuf, and resh. Now let's read it. The ha-a-vadim, and the servants, because we know avad means servant. The ham-sharatim, and the attendants. So how do we get that? We look down here. Mesher sharet is a masculine noun. It can mean butler, footman, lackey, manservant. Hidliku, they ignited. So if we look down here, hidlik is a verb to kindle, to light, to ignite. And the u at the end is they. They ignited esh, meaning a fire, of, I've added of, gechalim. Gechalim are coals. Mi panei, from the face. You could say from before or from the presence is often how they translate it. They do in the translation. But it literally is from the face of. Ha-kor, meaning the cold. So the servants and the officers kindled a fire of coals due to the presence of cold. So now we can read that. V'ha-avadim, v'ham-sharatim, hidliku esh, gechalim, mi panei ha-kor. And the translation is, and the servants and the attendants, they ignited a fire of coals from the face of the cold. And we come to part B. We have a vav, yod, ayin, mem, dalet, vav, vav, yod, tav, chet, mem, vav, vav, gimel, mem, safit, kaf, fe, aleph, ayin, mem, dalet, ayin, mem, safit, vav, mem, tav, chet, mem, and mem, safit. And now we read that. Vayamdu, and they stood, remembering that amad means to stand. And with the vav and the yod, it's a completed action, and they stood. Vayit chamamu, and they were warmed. So what's the word? Chimem is a piel verb, to warm, to heat, to stir up. And they were warmed. Again, the vav at the end is they. V'gam, and also Kepha, which is Peter. Omed, he stood. Imam, and we know that im means with, and then the mem so fit is them, with them. mit chamem. Now we know chamem means to warm, right? So, and was warmed. And was warmed. So from the previous verse, presence of the cold, Peter also was standing with them and warmed himself. That's how it's translated. So now let's read it. Vaya amdu, vayit chamamu, vagam Kepha omed imam mit chamem. And the translation, and they stood, and they were warmed, and also Kepha. He stood with them and was warmed. And now we come to 19, represented with a yod value of 10 and a tet value of 9. That's not a 4, it's a 9. And then we go through the letters. Vav, yod, shin, aleph, lamed. Hey, kaf, hey, nun, safit. Hey, gimel, dalet, vav, lamed. Aleph, tav, yod, hey, vav, shin, ayin, ayin, lamed. Tav, lamed, mem, yod, dalet, yod, vav. Vav, ayin, lamed, lamed, kuf, chet, and vav. Now let's read it. Vayishal, and he asked, because sha'al means to ask, as it says down here, to ask a question. Ha-kohen, meaning the priest. Ha-gadol, the great priest, the high priest. Et, grammar marker, Yahushua, or Yahusha. Al, meaning about, regarding. Talmidayev, meaning his disciples. The al, and about. Likho, his lessons. So rather than, as they put here, his teaching, I used lessons because if we look down here, lekach is a masculine noun meaning a lesson or a moral. And as a verb, lekach, as a kol verb, means to take, to acquire. So therefore it's about his lessons. The high priest asked Yeshua about his disciples and about his teaching. That's how it's translated. Now let's read that. Vayish'al ha-kohen ha-gadol et Yahushua al talmidayev v'al likho. And of course the translation. And he asked the priest, the great, grammar marker Yahusha, about his disciples and about his lessons. And then we have 20, represented with kaf, which has a value of 20. And then we go, vav, yod, ayin, nun, safid, yod, hey, vav, shin, ayin, vav, yod, aleph, mem, resh, aleph, lamed, yod, vav, aleph, nun, kaf, yod, dalet, bet, resh, tav, yod, bet, aleph, zayin, nun, yod, kaf, lamed, hey, ayin, vav, lamed, mem, safit. Remembering that the iron is in white, telling us we don't pronounce it, same as we don't pronounce the aleph here. So we read, Vaya'an, and he answered. No pronoun, so it's he, and with the vav and the yod, we know that the root word is ana, which is a kol verb to answer, to reply. But we also see that the hey is dropped off the end because it's a weak letter. And then there's Yahushua, or Yahusha, Vayomer, and he said, Eliav, unto him, Anoki, I, dibarti, I have spoken, Ba'alznei. Now this is a case where the kamatz rule, so if we look down here, the root word is ozen, which is a feminine noun meaning ear or external ear. And the note is that the kamatz rule applies, being a short O sound. So in a closed syllable, usually at the first, then the kamatz changes to an O sound. So it is be'ozni, in the ears. Kol, again, same, the kamatz rule. Kol, meaning all. We can see it there as an O sound rather than an A sound. Kol meaning all, ha'olam meaning the world, all of the world. So it is. Yeshua answered and said to him, I have spoken in the ears of the entire world. So now we can read that. And it is, Vaya'an Yahushua Vayomer Elayev Anoki Dibarti Be'oznei Kol Ha'olam. And the translation, and he answered Yahusha, and he said unto him, I have spoken in the ears of all the world. And we get to part B now, which is a Vav, a Tav, a Mem, a Yod, a Dalet, Lamed, Mem, Dalet, Tav, Yod, Bayet, Vayet, Yod, Tav, Kaf, Nun, Samek, Tav, Vav, Vayet, Yod, Tav, Hey, Mem, Kuf, Dalet, Shin. And it is the tamid, meaning and constantly, because tamid, if we looked at it, tamid is adjective for always, constantly, and as a masculine noun it can also mean a daily offering, according to the Talmudic understanding of it. And then we have limati, and constantly I taught, because limad means to teach. And it is veyet, meaning in the house, knesset, meaning of the assembly, uveyet, and in the house, because that vet means in, and in the house, ha-mikdash, normally translated as the temple, but it literally means the holy. It means the holy place, the sanctuary, right? In the house, the holy place, literally, right? So they translate it as of the temple. And if we look down here, we've got Knesset, which is a feminine noun, means assembly, gathering, synagogue, which is interesting that the actual government of Israel today is called the Knesset, the assembly of governing officials. So now we can read that. And it is the tamid, remembering that the kamatz is a longer sounding A. The tamid, limati, be'veyet, knesset, uveyet, ha-mikdash. All right, now we can, and then we can move on to 20 part C. We have an aleph, a shin, a resh, a kaf, a lamed, hey yod, hey vav, dalet yod, mem safid, nun kaf, or kuf. All right, it's kuf there. Hey lamed yod mem safid, shin mem hey, vav lamed aleph, dalet bayet resh, tav yod, dalet vayet resh, bayet samek, tav and resh. And now let's read it. Asher, which in this case can be where, because we know that it can mean that, it can even be like a pronoun, like who or whom. But where suits the case. Kol, all, ha-Yehudim, the Jews, nik, Halim were gathered. Now, if we look at it, kahal as a masculine noun means assembly, audience, congregation. But this is a verb. And with the nun, it's a completed action, meaning were gathered. Because kahal can mean gather. So therefore, if it was kahal, it would be together. And then shema, there. Velo, and not. Dibarti, I spoke. Davar, a thing or a word. Basater, in secret. Therefore it's the temple where all the Jews assemble there, and I have not spoken anything in secret. Amen. And now we read it. Asher, Kol, Ha Yehudim, Nik, Halim, Shama, Velo, Dibarti, Davar, Basater. Right, and the translation, where all the Yehudim were gathered there, and not I spoke a thing in secret. And now, we now come to our revision to see just how we are going with understanding our Hebrew. And as we can see, we've got a tet, value of 9, a Zion value of 7. 9 and 7 is 16. So we know we're in verse 16. And then it is Kepha, Peter, Amad stood, Michutz, outside, La Sha'ar, to the gate, or of the gate, Vayetzeh, and went out, Ha-Talmid, the disciple, Ha-Acher, the other, Ha-Nodar, the one known. And Kepha stood outside of the gate, and went out, the disciple, the other, the one known. And then we have La Kohen, to the priest, Ha Gadol, the high or the great, Vedaber, and he spoke. L2, Ha Shoeret, to the attendant, the servant, Vayave, and he brought in, et, grammar marker, Kepha, Peter, Ha Baita, to the house. To the priest, so the one known, to the priest, the great, the high priest, and he spoke to the gatekeeper, and he brought in, grammar marker, Kepha, to the house. Then we have Yod, value of 10, Zion, value of 7. Now we're up to 17. Va Tomer, and she said, Ha Ma, the handmaiden, Ha Shoeret, of the gatekeeper, L2, Kepha, Peter, Ha Lo, are not, Gum also, Ata you. And she said, the handmaid of the gatekeeper to Kepha, are not also you? And then we have me tal me day, from the disciples of Ha-ish, the man, Ha-zeh, this, Vayomer, and he said, lo, no, or not. From the disciples of the man this, and he said, no. Then we have Yod 10, Chet 8, we're in verse 18. The Ha-avadim, and the servants, the Ham Sharatim, meaning the men servants, and the men servants, Hid Liku, meaning they kindled. Esh, fire. Gechalim, of coals. Mi paneh, from before or from the face of hakor, meaning the cold. And the servants and the attendants, they ignited a fire of coals from the face of the cold. Vaya amdu, and they stood, again because of the yod and the vav at the prefix. We know it is also a verb, but it's also a completed action, something that's already occurred. And they stood. Vayit chamamu, and they warmed. And they were warmed. Vagam, and also Kepha. Maid, stood. Imam, with them. Umit chamem, and he warmed. And he was warmed. So we read it, and they stood, and they were warmed. And also Kepha, he stood with them and was warmed. And then we have Yod value of 10 and Tet value of 9. So we're in 19. By Yeshua, and he asked, Ha Kohen the priest, Ha Gadol the high, Et grammar marker Yeshua, all about Talmidav, his disciples, the al and regarding or about Likho, his lessons. And he asked the priest, the great, the high, grammar marker Yeshua, about his disciples and about his lessons. And then we have Kaf, and we know that's a value of 20. And it is Vaya'am, and he answered. Yahushua, that's who answered. Vayomer, and he said, Eliav, to him, Anoki, I, Dibarti, I spoke. Be'oznei, in the ears of Kol, all, ha'olam, the world. And he answered, Yahushua, and he said unto him, I have spoken in the ears of all the world. Oops, take that away. Vatamid, and always or constantly, limati, I taught. Be'veit, in the house, Knesset, which means the assembly. It can mean the synagogue. It can mean wherever they assemble, right? So in the house of the assembly, Uveit, and in the house of Ha-Mikdash, which is normally translated as the temple, but literally it means the holy place, the house of the holy place. So it is, and constantly are taught in the house of the assembly, which is translated often of the synagogues, and in the house of the temple. And finally, 20 part C, Asher, where Kol, all, Ha-Yehudim, the Jews, Nik Halim, were gathered, Shema there, Velo, and not, Dibarti, I spoke, Devar, a thing or a word, Ba-Sater, in secret. Translation, where all the Yehudim were gathered there, and not I spoke a thing in secret. Right, and finally we come to our vowels, just to renew our understanding every time so we remember what the vowels are. And when there's a dot above it, it's called a cholam, and it normally replaces the actual vav, so that all you hear is the O sound of the cholam. Then we have a shava, which breaks up the word into syllables, and it can be a silent where it ends the syllable, or it can be with a short E sound, so it becomes shava instead of shiva. And then we have a segol, which gives it the short E sound, se. Then we have zere, which is a bit longer E sound. Then we have patak, which is a short A sound, and we have kamatz, which is a longer A sound. And then we come finally to looking at the numbering system. And we can see that it all begins with the Aleph 1, Vet 2, Gimel 3, Dalet 4, Hey 5, Vav 6, Zion 7, Chet 8, Tet 9, Yod 10, Kaf 20, Lamed 30, Mem 40, Nun 50, Samek 60, Ayin 70, Fe 80, Zadeh 90, Kuf 100, Resh 200, Shin 300, and Tav 400. And that's how the numbering system works. And again, we have the useful resources, www.beithamashiach.com. Very useful in practicing your Hebrew, because it has ancient Hebrew, modern Hebrew, has transliteration, color-coded, even has the Greek, and their meanings, and their color codings. And then we have www.doitinhebrew.com. Very useful dictionary for determining the root words. Because with Hebrew, we've always got prefixes and suffixes, and we've got to draw out the root word out of it. And so we just hope that you are blessed by going through these lessons, and they do help you in your practice and your study of Hebrew. And may you be blessed in Yeshua, our Messiah and our King, always. Amen, and we hope to see you again in these lessons.